Riding that west side,
East side.
that no seats in or stress side.
Let's ride.
Jim Jones swerving. I got that purple, I'm blow. Tight grip on the Escalade pole. Yeah, Harlem just like Compton. That's just how I roll. Yeah.
Dead in the middle of little did we know.
I'm serious about mine. I'm so sincere.
Now at last I have seen a judgment of Solomon.
The cream of the crop.
Welcome to Thought Crimes, everyone. This is your girl, Sincere, and I'm here with...
This is your man, P. Solo. Look, Jim Jones is out here in these streets. You know, he came off of a very positive loss against the Locks. He's out here, you know, in Clubhouse. He's promoting black businesses, black Ricans, Puerto Ricans, whatever you are. He's promoting y'all, whether y'all got barbecue sandwich shops or burritos. He's promoting Sean Collector's sandals, you know, and you know, he's trying to keep his head clean up out of the streets. But it just seems like the streets keep calling his dusty braids back.
Keep calling them back. Well, this is the thing for background for people who don't know, but most of y'all know who listen to Thought Crimes, so we're just picking people up to speed if they don't. But a lot of interesting things happens around Jim Jones with this, because he is the one who focused on bringing the blood culture to New York. If you really think about it, the reason why people don't come after Cameron with this nonsense is because Cameron, he did street culture, but he didn't do gang culture. That was his man Jim Jones who brought that into the Dipset organization or a movement with their boy band, right?
Yeah, it was.
Right. Cameron was just like, I'm the lead nigga. I got 2 diamond studded earrings.
Yeah.
I wear my pink, my hot pink, my baby blue. I'm the fly nigga, dibbity goo goo.
He made baby daddy music for Gen Xers.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's the type of guy, like, if you were in high school, all the girls would be like, ah, right? Yeah. So that's Cameron, which is why they don't bring him up as being the feds.
Right.
But everybody knows that Cameron's too lazy for that.
Well, if there was any New York rapper that you could possibly run up on and rob, it would be Cameron.
And Cameron's the type of guy who's like, here, just take it.
Yeah, he would give up his jewelry.
And he's like, yeah, I'll buy some more.
He might laugh about it in a record. Yeah, I got robbed, but you know. Whatever.
Right. Like, be honest with you, Cameron's spiciness comes with his vanity.
Yes.
And with the people he's close to. That's it.
He had too much oil on his face to be straight. He really isn't, though, if you think about it.
Right. So he don't care about Fed stuff. He don't care about gang stuff. So that's why.
He cares about bad haircuts.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's it.
That's it. Yeah, I got you.
Going back to Jim Jones, he was the one who was like, I'm capo. Yeah. I'm bringing the gang culture of LA to New York. Mm-hmm. Even when he did We Stay when he copied off of the West Coast film.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you're talking about Menace to Society.
Menace to Society.
That's when he was with The Game. I like that song, too. It's a very dusty, garbage, trash record, and I'm talking about in the sense of filth.
Right. And
I like the record.
If you listen to Jim Jones, he admits, he said, I'm the one who brought blood.
Bees and blood to
New York.
I was kind of like, well, actually, okay, so for those people, and this is for the complex nerds that are just strictly pay attention to the rappers.
Right.
When you think about Jim Jones, he was the first rapper from like the streets of New York, like homegrown New York dustiness that threw up the red rag, right? But the gang culture came by way of the prison system, where prisoners were transported to Rikers Island, and then they were developing their sets up out of there, and it bled into the rap street crews that you saw, and Jim Jones was the first poster boy to come out there. Right around this time, though, because there's a synastry that took place. Right. It was Jim Jones in New York, right? Because people was confused. There was like, Dipset wears purple. Who is this guy, right? Because that's how I saw it when I was growing up, right?
Right. They wear purple, pink, and hot, and that baby blue.
Martha Stewart colors.
Right. And it was Jim that brought the orange and red.
Right.
You know, gang blood culture.
You're right about that, Sid. Right around this time, it was Jim, and then you saw Wayne was running around with his blood rag. And then people forget, though, the big influence on even Wayne when he went to Cash Money Records was Mac 10. So you had a lot of that energy diffuse out of the West Coast.
And remember and I want people to know this, when Lil Wayne was repping blood, because he reps Crip. But when
Well, he was Yeah, he had a
he keep
period
going a lot of time back
early
and
on where
forth.
he was throwing up seeds in early videos, and then
Right.
he just like rested on the Bloods. But
the Hot Boys was another boy band
they were.
in rap music. So it's very interesting. We had the boy band Dipset in the boy band Hot Boys.
They don't want to look at it.
And they both was representing blood, you know. And this is a funny thing too, though, because with Jim Jones, remember Dipset was a popular movement. Like you write that in Rikers Island, what was already developing, but you always need a cultural manifestation for it to become hot across that city. Jim Jones bringing that to the mainstream in rap culture and hip hop is what made it took off like wildfire. Cause no different from like the LA movies and soundtracks and all that other stuff that really was able to make it popular. Like you know, even when you're talking about NWA, like what they was able to bring to that culture and scene in LA in California. That's what Jim Jones did for New York. You know, with Dipset.
Well, yeah, because around this time, even when they talked about Mac 10, Lil Wayne, and then they had guys that came out of the New Orleans blood set as well, because they're the Uptown Bloods and all. This is like it's a whole history of them before we even get to. But what was taking place in New York, Harlem, and all them spaces was developing in prison system, prison culture, street culture. That's where it comes from. But also, people forget at the same time, though, what you're saying about making a cultural trend, make it look cool, is remember around this time you had The Game. And The Game did for the Bloods publicly what Snoop did for the Crips before him. So at that time, you had Blood rappers, you had Blood gang member rappers, but none of them had cracked the level to like a Snoop. But Game, when he came out and he sold 5 million records, that's where you saw that bridge between Game, Lil Wayne, and then Jim Jones as a culture in rap music. That it became more of like the blood. It was a
trifecta because The Game had controversy with this because they said, why you rap like you a New York nigga, but
he named his children, one of his children Harlem.
But you have this West Coast swag.
He did.
And he was able to do a lot of tracks with Jim Jones, as you said, the trifecta, and then also do tracks with Wayne. You know, so they had that little trifecta going on where the music was bleeding into each other because you had Jim Jones doing like the West Coast hairstyle sometimes where he would perm it and he would have the bump, and then you would have The Game rapping sometimes in the East Coast rhythm and also baritone. You know, so they all had synergy with each other, but Jim Jones was the one who tried to take the credit that said, you know, I'm the one who really brought it culturally with the Bloods to. I think there is a snippet where he says, I brought the Bloods.
He did. He said it on Clubhouse.
New York.
Well, okay, so and that's what was interesting because around this time I remember being paying attention to what was taking place. Look, Jim Jones, if he wants to have a credit for a chapter in promoting gang culture, it would be him on record coming out of New York, because there was a lot of New York dudes, they were saying, what is this blood stuff, this cripping stuff? Because you got to keep in mind, the children of them, it's not necessarily directly the Bloods, but the children of the gang culture that was definitely hyperactive in the early 2000s, the children of them would be the Pop Smokes, the Woos, the Fabio Foreigns, all of them babies running. Yeah, all of them running around. So they're the children of that era. So if Jim Jones wants to lay claim to that as far as being the first New York rapper to put a blood rag on a microphone while he's rapping, he can do that. But there was already a criminal movement taking place before he even opened his mouth in that regards. But what I will agree with you on 100% is that there was cultural diffusion because Game was criticized for sounding like Shine when he came out. Right. And even West Coast rappers were getting on Game early on. They say you sound too much like a New York dude, a New York nigga rapping. And then you saw where Wayne was being influenced by Dipset. That's why him and Joel Santana were going to do an album together, and they did mixtapes together because Wayne, he began to adopt a lot of New York slang into his lyrics too. If you listen to mixtape run Wayne, he did like a lot of the Dipset lingo. He liked a lot of the Harlem energy. He incorporated that in his music. And then also it was a synastry because Harlem dudes, Jim Jones and some of the other guys was blooding. And then you see what was going on with New Orleans as well. So it was interesting. And interestingly enough, the same people that kind of was tied to Jim Jones were also some of the ones that was backing Tekashi later on.
Well, that's what Jim Jones need to take credit of. Take credit for Tekashi. Take credit for Tekashi 6ix9ine, Jim.
Yeah.
You know, that's why you being trolled right now by Wack 100. And Wack, gotta be honest, he really don't like New York niggas.
He don't.
And he don't even consider them real bloods. And that is a thing. Like, the Game, he really like all that togetherness. This is why he's been crying about not being with Jay-Z, crying on all that shit, because he likes the whole, I want West and East to have this synergy together.
He's a hip hop baby too. He genuinely enjoys studying hip hop. So a lot of New York guys mean something to him.
That's why he went over to Philly and New York when he did that diss record towards Meek Mill.
Right.
You know, so he likes all that energy. And yeah, he does his cadence. He sounds like a New York rapper.
He do.
Again, just with the elements of West Coast swag and stuff surrounded him.
That's why New York, a lot of New York hip hop heads accepted him so easily too, because he sounded like one of them.
Right. And getting back to Jim Jones though, you know, Jim Jones to me, he is an issue in hip hop. Don't get me wrong. And hear me out. This is why I'm saying it.
Okay, go ahead.
Not the trolling.
Right.
We've had trolls in hip hop before. I love that energy because it's funny when he said we about to smack a Koofy off.
That was funny, and I like Nas, but that was the Koofy smacking thing was funny.
But what I don't like about it is that we don't talk about boy bands enough in rap music like the Hot Boys or Dipset, and there's others. 2, with Jim Jones, I don't like he's just all over the place emotionally. So he's the type of, like, he's a Nick Tino. He's very emotional. He's very sensitive. You know, he cries about his personal relationships, which is a very, you know, Latin thing to do. But he's mixed, of course. And what I'm trying to say is that he mixed a whole lot of toxicity and bullshit together. I'm not trying to say who he is as an entire person. I'm sure he is a good guy to his girlfriend or wife and children and people in his life. But if you're talking about what has the ripple effect of some of the things he brought into it, it's kind of like some of the downturns we talked about with NWA or some other ones who they had a lot of talent, some of these people, but they brought in cultures or brought in a downshift.
I get what you're saying.
Where it's like you could be mentally split and fractured. Like when you think about
cognitive dissonance.
Yeah, with Jim Jones, you know, on one hand we could say it's cultural fusion, but on another hand we could also say it's cultural madness, like
cultural bastardization. Yeah,
with all these crazy elements and putting it into one basket. Because look at it. Look at the trifecta who brought in that was a new wave of Bloods. Think about it. We've known the things that the Game has been accused of. We know that the Game cries as well. He's emotionally off.
Yeah, he makes old English music, if you want, Mad Dog music, when he gets drunk and rap.
Right. You know, he can never keep it private about who he slept with. Yeah. But he's mentally off. Wayne is mentally off. And Jim Jones are mentally off, and one thing they all have in common, they cry as well. It's like, you know, when someone's so crazy, they start to cry. And then another thing that makes it worse is some of them aren't as tough. Now, I can't speak to whether Jim and the Game has actually put in some street cred, but I do know Wayne is all fake. He's all puff.
Well, he's actually a child star, to be honest with you.
He's a child star, part of a boy band who became his own superstar.
Yeah, but okay, so I get what you said. I do feel, I've always felt like this. I felt as a culture, not so much the citizens, but as a culture, because we know the culture can speak where the citizens don't agree with, right? I feel as a culture, New York hip-hop's culture was way too easy criticizing and comfortably criticizing the ill effects of NWA, but not that of Dipset, and then within Dipset, the Blood movement. Because the Blood movement was actually bigger than Dipset. it actually had a longer lasting stay in power than what we saw. Because once Dipset kind of faded away and Cam and them started beefing with each other, the blood culture remained. And if anything, like it kind of kept a spotlight on Jim too, because Joel Santana never was like, I'm a blood. He never said I was a Crip. He's just like, I like to rap about coke. I like to make love to coke. I like to sell coke.
You just like to talk about mixing up the medicine.
Right. We know Cam's thing is like,
I'm pretty,
right? But like, if you think about Jim Jones, beyond Dipset, he's had gang, quote unquote, rap beef elsewhere.
I think that was the distraction,
yeah.
though, because when you think about it, Dipset had a cultural movement because of two fronts: the blood culture, but also because of the troll humor is the other side of it. Cam, when you think about Cam, Jim, and then also Santana together, for a lot of people, the first thing that come to mind isn't blood, though.
There you go. That's my point.
It's a two front.
Yeah.
The people who are really knee deep in rap culture and that street stuff, they're like blood. But everybody else, like, look at even the little children that Cam and them are promoting in basketball. Them kids, they don't think about no blood stuff, what Jim did with blood. When they think about Dipset. Yeah, they think about their uncles doing just the music and the style and all that. And that, you know.
That's what was weird about Dipset. Like, to be honest with you, that's why I say Jim is his own thing unto himself. Because Jim Jones himself, he said he was the muscle of Dipset. And he was. Because, let's be real, Cam didn't strike as the toughest dude in the block, and Joel Santana looks like an earthworm with a do-rag on, right?
I would say Santana is too.
to this day.
Perhaps you shouldn't turn your back on me.
Is that a challenge?
You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Black folks are nosy. They have specials. Nosy specials. Why does a bee make honey? You ain't a bee. Why do you give a fuck?